With the end of the Formula 1 and World Rally Championship seasons, the motorsport calendar for 2020 is essentially done and dusted. With that, let's look back on 2020 and see the good, the kinda good, and the bad. So, let's start this by talking about the bad stuff, because, well, let's just get it over with. Let's just get the worst of it over with. Let's start with the politics infesting motorsports. Aside from IndyCar, because I'm not really sure that IndyCar was political, I didn't see anything. I didn't see any political stuff in IndyCar. So apart from IndyCar, props to IndyCar for being non-political. Pretty much every motorsport has been political in some way, this year. There is something which you really, really, really should not do in sports, and that is be political, okay? Sports unites us. It unites us and can even stop wars. There have been examples where sports has stopped wars. And politics, well, yeah, it's politics. It divides people. Put politics in sports and you divide the fan base. And it's a really, really bad situation. And, personally for me, I don't want any political thing in sports. Any political stuff in sports, okay? We're here to ignore that stuff, okay? We watch sports to escape that stuff, to escape our problems, our worries. When we come home from a bad day at work or college or school, we want to have a good time. We don't want to be reminded of the bad things. So, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Keep politics out of sports. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case this year. The Bubba Wallace situation, the Kyle Larson situation, which we'll get to. The Trump 2020 car, the Black Lives Matter car, just all of it just sucks. It sucks. Formula 1, the We Racers won, which is pretty hypocritical given that they're going to Saudi Arabia now. So, yeah, if you care so much about activism, then why are you going to Saudi Arabia? Kind of hypocritical. Just in general, politics in sports, it's been terrible this year. And please, for next year and every year after, never ever put politics in sports. Never ever put politics in sports. Moving on, we go to the events this year, which were kinda good, but also kinda bad. It's the kinda good, kinda bad events of this year, and there has been a lot of those this year. So let's talk about the first one: the emergence of sim racing into the mainstream. Well, sim racing hasn't exactly come of age this year. I definitely say it started coming of age a couple of years back. This has probably been one of the most important years sim racing has ever had, because it's finally been given a chance to shine, in the mainstream. The lockdown really, really helped sim racing. Probably the only good thing about the lockdown, in fact, is that, yeah, it did allow sim racing to kind of, burst into the mainstream. And I'd definitely say that, overall, people were very open to sim racing. The majority of people were very positive about it. They said, yeah, this is great. Whilst we couldn't have real racing at this time, sim racing, yeah, it was a great thing. It was a chance to see some racing when real racing couldn't be run. Now, of course, there were a few incidents during this time. Definitely the Bubba sponsorship problem. That was an issue. The iRacing IndyCar, Indianapolis race, that was a problem as well. Daniel Abt being sacked. It's been part good, part bad. But I'd say it was more positive than more bad. It's just that, had it not been for these, controversies, it would have been better. It would have been better. I think it would definitely be a good thing in 2020. But unfortunately, like many things this year, the good things had baggage, and that baggage wasn't good. So, sim racing, overall a good thing, but not without its issues. Speaking of sim racing, let's talk out the Kyle Larson debacle. Because Kyle Larson's 2020 has been one of the most incredible stories I've ever seen in motorsports. If you don't know the story, during the iRacing Monza event, Kyle Larson said the N-word on voice chat. And because some of the guys were streaming, it was heard by everyone. Everyone heard it. And within the night, Kyle Larson was essentially cancelled. Within a couple of days, he was fired from Chip Ganassi. And he was essentially cancelled. He goes over to dirt racing and completely dominates, that kind of discipline. To the point where later on in the year, he's announced that he's going to drive the rebranded number 5 Hendrick Motorsports. He has come out this year better than he did come, into this year, despite saying the N-word and getting cancelled. And, that to me is a great story. And you see far too many cancellations these days. You see people never given a second chance. They'll say a bad thing and they'll just be cancelled. It's great to see someone actually, give a middle finger to cancel culture and just go, you know what, this isn't the end for me. I'm coming back. I'm coming back, and that's what Kyle Larson did. And I'm gonna say this: watch out for Kyle Larson in 2021 because he could be a potential winner of the NASCAR Cup Series. One final thing for the OK category, and that is the Daytona 500. Now, the Daytona 500 as a whole was, I guess you could say, uneventful. It was a typical Daytona race. You got the big one. You got restrictor plate racing. But the final lap of the race was one which wasn't exactly great. It was good and bad. In that, on the final lap, Ryan Newman was fighting for the lead. In fact, he was in the lead, and Ryan Blaney is trying to push him. Blaney goes to the inside. Newman goes and tries to block him, or I think Blaney was trying to push him, but he got hooked around, and Ryan Newman spun around and hit the barrier. He came back onto the track and was hit by Corey LaJoie, and it was not pretty. He was hit twice, driver's side, and it made the entire motorsport world tense up in horror. The news about Ryan Newman's condition was very quiet. It was there was no news on his condition for hours, and I honestly think that during that time I thought he was dead because the whole blinder situation. They put up the blinders to try and stop people from looking at Newman as they took him out of the car, which kind of led me to believe that that was not Newman, that was body parts in there. But thankfully, we get the news that Ryan Newman was perfectly fine, albeit kind of bruised up and kind of hurt. But aside from that, he was perfectly fine. And he walked out the hospital on his own power. So I think, as a whole, the crash was certainly bad, but the fact that Newman came out of that unscathed, or relatively unscathed, is incredible. So the Daytona 500 and Ryan Newman's crash is in the kinda category because it's not totally bad, but it's not totally good either. No crash is good. I have saved the best till last because now we're talking about the good things about motorsport in 2020. So let's start with the first race. You could say this year, the first proper race this year, the Bathurst 12 Hours. That race was, I guess you could say, fairly uneventful aside from a few big crashes. But personally, for me, watching it, it was actually a pretty good race. I actually enjoyed the race, and seeing Bentley win, after many attempts to win the race, was a great moment. And I think Southpaw Racer would have loved that one if he was there. So the Bathurst 12 Hours was a good thing. Speaking of races, the Italian Grand Prix, of course, Pierre Gasly winning in that AlphaTauri. A couple of weeks ago, the Sakhir Grand Prix, Sergio Perez finally gets a win.
Yes! Yes!
If it wasn't for the news that he was going to join Red Bull a couple of days ago, I would have said that was the perfect end to his career in Formula One. And the Turkish Grand Prix, a crazy wacky Grand Prix, which I didn't watch. Same with the Sakhir Grand Prix. And of course Hamilton winning his 7th World Championship. And also Lance Stroll getting a pole position, which, okay, that's a thing now. So I think overall there have been some good races. I wouldn't say the Indy 500 this year. Whilst the Indy 500 normally is one of the best races of the year, it wasn't exactly that great this year. It was kind of uneventful, and yeah, it was kind of an anticlimax with that yellow flag ending, that caution flag ending. But as a whole, I think there have been some good races in 2020. Hopefully, we can get a few more next year. Another good thing was the new tracks and returning tracks of Formula One. Because of the pandemic, some races were unavailable, but that meant that new tracks and returning tracks, previous tracks on the F1 calendar, were able to return. Turkey, Portimao, which I don't think has ever hosted Formula One events before, and Imola. I think that's been a very positive thing this year, that we've been able to have these new tracks come on to, the calendar. And as a whole, new tracks, it's been a good thing. It's been a good thing. Another good thing, the re-emergence of manufacturers in the World Endurance Championship. It's fair to say that the World Endurance Championship has struggled over the past couple of years since Audi and Porsche left the championship in 2016 and 2017 respectively. But now they're coming back. Audi and Porsche are coming back to the World Endurance Championship as well as Peugeot, meaning that these next few years are going to be very exciting. And with the LMDH and hypercars, both racing together, the IMSA and World Endurance Championship convergence, it's a fantastic time for endurance racing, and I can't wait to see this product on the track next year. One final good thing about 2020 in motorsports. We got through it. With the lockdown, a lot of motorsports lost money. But the best thing is that, you know, no championships went out of business. No, rarely any teams went out of business. Everyone came out of it okay. So, one final good thing about 2020, we made it. We made it through this year. And with that, I will end this video. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.